Hey guys, it's Enjoli. So today I am working on custom quilting, custom computerized quilting, a Judy Niemeyer Prismatic Star. And I've kind of built it here already. And this is the quilt here. So I wanted to just quickly take you through my process on how I am setting these feather pieces into the quilt and kind of the process I'm using to get those to stitch out. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my markers function on my Qmatic to mark the four corners of my diamond pieces. So for now, I'm just going to do these two center ones, and then I'm going to work my way out to the other ones. And one more up here. There we go. So I've set markers for these two diamonds. So now we're going to go to the screen and we're going to put the feather pieces in, and we're going to use morph to make them fit with a margin in our blocks. Okay, so I have my marker screen still open here, and I'm just going to move these out of the way for now so you can see what I'm doing. We're going to click connect markers, and I'm going to connect these markers here, and that way it creates an outline for me on where to drop the diamond design. So once I complete one, I'm going to green check mark and save that because I want them as individual pieces. We're going to go back to markers, connect markers, and connect the other one here. Okay, and green check mark. Okay, so that's what I want here. And then I'm going to bring my designs back over. Okay, and I just like to zoom in here. So I'm going to select my design, and then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to select boundary, and I'm going to do it on the screen. I'm using the 4-point placement, and I want it to maintain ratio. So I'm going to click maintain ratio, and then I have to select my 4 points. So just the points that I marked, I'm going to select those, and you can see they're green. And then it will do the adjustment here. Okay, so it maintained the ratio and fit it in there. But I want it to have a little bit of a buffer, so I'm going to put in like an 1/8 of an inch buffer here. And there we go. So it changed that. So now we're going to green check mark, and now we're going to do the same thing on this other one. Okay, so we're going to go to boundary, 4-point, maintain ratio, and check these boxes. We're going to move that one back over. So if you click and it's not exactly where you want it, you can drag it over. There we go. There we go. Okay, and we're going to put in that margin. Beautiful. And then green check mark once we're done. And then I'm going to go back to full view here. So now you can see I've done this top part of the quilt already. So I'm just moving on to do these. Now I can fit more in the safe area, which is awesome. And I'm going to do that once I'm done with these. But I want to stitch these just in little pieces at a time because we know that things shift as we quilt them. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm ready at the machine. So I'm going to come over here. And because I drew my boxes, my diamonds around my block, they are treating it as a design. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to DQ all, and then I'm going to select what I want it to stitch. And I want it to stitch this feather and this feather. And then we're going to green check mark. I like to kind of go back to full view when I'm done with things just to look. I'll zoom in a little bit maybe. But now I'm ready to stitch this, so I'm going to hit play. And we're going to start it at the start point, and it's going to move over to start stitching that feather. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is just go ahead and set markers for the other diamonds that I can fit into this safe area. So like I said before, I can fit more into this area, but I've stitched my first two, so now I'm comfortable marking out and dropping the designs in for the other 4 that are in this area. So I'm gonna do the left side and set those markers, and then I'll jump over to the right side to do those markers. So this does kind of look like a slow process, and I'll say that it's not super speedy, as in the machine is locked on the belt, so I'm not whizzing around setting these markers. And you do want to take your time, right? The more accurate you are with setting your markers, the more accurate your design is going to be once you drop it into the area. Now I'm just going to go in and connect those markers to make my diamonds so that I have my outline in which to drop my feather design into. Okay, so what happened here was I realized that maybe I missed a marker. So my design or my line came up at an angle, which didn't seem right because I know that my diamonds are even. So what I did was I just went back, jumped back and set another marker. And that way now I can continue creating my diamond shapes. Okay, so now I can grab my diamond design and put it over into my workspace, and then I can drop my design into the diamonds. And you can see here I'm just using the rotate icon to rotate the design to the correct orientation to just fit kind of initially into those diamond shapes. And then I'm going to work through the same process that I did before with the boundary setting, and I'm going to mark my 4 placement areas, and then mark my 4 points to set my boundary with maintain ratio, and then also put in my margin so that I have the design contained within my block. So you can see that if you are doing custom quilting on something with a lot of small pieces, small boxes, small areas that you are wanting to put designs in, this can be quite a process, right? This is going to take you a little bit of time. But again, the thing to keep in mind is that if you have a bunch of little pieces or little things that you're putting designs in, things are shifting as you quilt, right? So I would say if you're going to try and mark out a whole row, what I've done before is I'll do one on the left, do one on the right, do one in the middle, and I kind of jump around. But be careful and be mindful of how much you go in and mark before you start quilting, because there's going to be some shifting, there's going to be some shrinkage. So you just need to be aware of that as you're working through and building your quilt. So once I'm happy with how everything looks, right, I can go back through, DQ everything because I drew those lines around my diamonds and it's going to treat those as designs. I can select which pieces I want to stitch, and when I'm ready, I hit play and I can start stitching my designs. You can see if you look, there's the dash line. That's signaling the jump stitches between my designs. So it'll stop, allow me to tie off, and then move to the next start point to start stitching again. So this is the actual real life view of me setting those markers for the process you just watched. And then of course me at the machine or at the computer connecting the lines and dropping the designs in. So what you see me doing here is just tying off the first one and starting the second one. Okay, so here I am building down the side of the quilt to stitch the lines I have coming in the kind of the border area of the quilt around the diamonds. And this is, I'm taking the design I created at the top and basically I've spun it now and I'm fitting it into the side part of this quilt. So I've taken the whole design that's wider than what I need and I'm fitting it in, and then you'll see I'm going to trim off what I don't need. But I'm double checking my points so you can see the cursor, the crosshair moving on the screen, and that's me checking my points to make sure that my markers are still accurate and that the points are going to hit where I want them to. So here I'm just checking the edge of the quilt to make sure everything looks good. And then what I'll do is I'm going to go in here and trim off the part that I don't need. Okay, so I'm trimming off the top and off the bottom so that I can quilt just the section that's available to me in my safe area. I've done the same thing already on the right side. So now I'm ready to go ahead and cue this up if I want. Oh, I forgot to trim off the extra off this outside of the quilt. We don't need to stitch that. So you can just trim like you would on an edge to edge and trim off the extra so that you don't need to waste your time stitching that. So remember, you need to DQ and select what you want to stitch. Otherwise it will try and stitch your marker line that you made, which you don't necessarily want it to stitch. And again, I have a jump stitch because it's going to stitch one side, stop, allow me to tie off, and then move to the other side to stitch. Okay, so this is just the process of the Qmatic stitching that side piece for us. So now we're just stitching that right side and letting it finish. I do have this sped up, so this is not how fast I'm stitching the design in real life, but you can see it's just stitching in to the point that I marked and back out to the side. So I'm completing that border piece before I move on to the next section.